Feeding, they say, is the baby's first vaccine. Yet every day, some mothers who want to feed their babies, either exclusively or otherwise, are forced to give up too soon, sometimes due to, work pressure, sometimes barriers from family, sometimes little or zero support. But what if supporting mothers to breastfeed was more simpler than we ever thought? Well, I think this is something you should think about. Having said that, a very good evening to you, and thank you for joining me on this very interesting episode of Gyna Plus right here on Afia TV. My name is Doris Amayim-Shisha, and this is where we talk about health issues that affect women and girls and sometimes children. And of course, you get all the answers that you would need. This program comes up every Wednesday at 6 p.m. and sometimes a repeat broadcast on Saturday at 8 p.m. And today we're going to talk about why it's important to prioritize, breastfeeding, why support actually is very important. And right after this break, you'll meet my guest, a nutritionist, a public health advocate, and someone quite young but very interested about this topic. You get to meet that really soon. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. If you just joined us, just keep watching Gyna Plus right here on Afia TV. And this is where we discuss health information, health issues that affect women and girls in the society and sometimes children. And of course, my name is Doris Amayim-Shisha, and this program comes up every Wednesday at 6 p.m. You can catch up with the repeat broadcast on Saturday at 8 p.m. And of course, our YouTube channel, Afia Culture and Lifestyle. If you're new on this platform, you can go there, get all the information that we have, because we have quite a lot there, so you don't get to miss out on anything. And today, we're talking about why it's important to prioritize supporting mothers and babies who are still in the breastfeeding phase. And this ahead of the fact that last week was the International Breastfeeding Week, and we are still in that mood. And joining me on the show to talk about this is a young public health advocate who is Chiamaka Chime. And she's a founder, NutriConnect Hub, and also a nutrition and public health advocate. Hi, Chiamaka. Welcome to Gyna Plus.
Hello, Doris. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you look bright and beautiful. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, very quickly for moving on to today's discussion. Breastfeeding Week was last week. And so for me, it's safe to say that the whole of August will be tagged as Breastfeeding Month. So it's normal to say that. But why is it important for us to keep talking about? Because this is an annual event, year in, year out. But beyond celebrating it as an annual event, why is it important for us to talk about it from the angle of supporting mothers and their babies as it concerns breastfeeding?
Okay, thanks for the question, Doris. So now, I'll start from the angle of Nigeria. In Nigeria, the figures of mothers who actually breastfeed their children is 29%. And so we think that we are a people who have evolved to the standard of knowing what breastfeeding is and then the numerous benefits of breastfeeding. But in practical sense, that's in the real practical sense, fewer and fewer mothers breastfeed their babies year in, year out. And so this year's theme could not have come at a better time. So now we are trying to fill in the gap. That why is it that with the vast knowledge of the importance of breastfeeding, yet the figures are showing that less mothers actually breastfeed their babies. So now that brought up the theme, prioritize breastfeeding. That's creating a sustainable environment for mothers. So it's just trying to, in a nutshell rather, it's trying to ascertain how can we help mothers breastfeed effectively? How can we make a sustainable environment where mothers can feel safe, where mothers can feel that they are comfortable enough to actually breastfeed their children?
Yes, you are a nutritionist, you are a public health advocate, and I'm so sure some mothers who are watching now, mothers-to-be who are watching now, will be like, okay, so good in point that this is coming up right now. So, of course, you're giving us the fact that, the statistics might be very poor as a country. But do you think that issues why we are where we are as it concerns mothers? 29% is quite low, so down the line. So, but What do you think from the research you've done, your advocacy you've been doing as a public health advocate, what you think is responsible for all of these gaps?
Okay, so firstly, the first gap that we have is mainly from the first one that we have noticed is from misinformation. So let me briefly explain misinformation in that sense. Most our beloved mother-in-laws, most of them and our sisters, most of them they mean good, but then while a mother is breastfeeding, especially first-time mothers, they are usually information gaps. So, for example, one that we particularly noticed around is they would tell the mothers that this breast milk they are giving to the child, how will it fill the child's stomach? Give him water. He's crying. Give him water. It's obvious that you are not producing enough milk. Give him water. Allow him. Give him this. Give him that. And then we think that we are helping, but then research has actually shown that breast milk is actually enough for the child, and the composition changes with age and with time. So now the breast milk that you give to a child at first month is different from that at second month, and then along the line. And so we have a misinformation gap, and then we have lack of support from both parents and especially spouse. And then when a mother is breastfeeding, most times there's what we call the psychology of breastfeeding, which means that when a mother is stressed, under anxiety, and then the workload is too much, her breast milk can cease or the supply can reduce. So now we are advocating for spouses to help to take off workload from the mother. Thirdly, we also have most women, when they try to breastfeed in public, being Nigerians, we are very passionate people. We be like, what is she doing here? What is this? What's it? Madam, you know that you are doing this. Why are you doing this in public? Cover it. And we are trying to advocate for mothers to breastfeed. Yet when a woman tries to breastfeed her child, they usually scorn. Look at what she's doing. And then we think that we are trying to keep a safe society, but we are not.
Okay, let me quickly come in there. So you said you and your team have been, doing some outings, trying to create awareness, around breastfeeding. You've been to hospitals, talking to mothers and all of that. What are some of the stories that you've had that makes you feel like, okay, there's really a problem? One-on-one practical stories from mothers in the hospitals, maybe in the wards and all of that.
Okay, so firstly, I'll start with the first one that we noticed. And most mothers, especially in the rural area, because we are coming from Nsukka, so most mothers, once they give birth, there's a first milk that comes out, which is the colostrum. Most people, they regard it as dirty because it's yellowish and somewhat sticky. So they will say that that's the dirty milk. So most of them, they pump it out. And forgetting that colostrum is the most important milk at that infant stage, because it contains some antibodies that the child needs to develop immunity against some diseases. And secondly, another important issue that we noticed was from most mothers, they complain that their milk ceases, that they notice that they can't really breastfeed anymore. And so from further inquiry, we realized that they have excessive workload, and then most of them they have children, and then once their spouse leaves them, they are breastfeeding the baby. They're thinking of taking care of the children. They're thinking of taking care of the home. They're thinking of going back to work. They're thinking of a lot of things. And then because the hormone in charge of secreting breast milk is the oxytocin, and it relies mainly on, it's a stress hormone, more like it relies mainly on stress, how the woman feels. So most times, once she's that stressed, the breast milk the supply might reduce, or it might stop completely, because it varies from woman to woman. Yes.
Okay, so I like where we are going. So the first thing you mentioned is the fact that for mothers who are watching us, the first breast milk that they get to produce after the baby is born is the colostrum, and it should not be thrown away. As a matter of fact, baby should have that. Now, when you talk about real-time support, now, what is it that connotes support? Because spouses, from your advocacy, from all that you've been saying, and what your team also, pushing for. Of course, the theme for the year is supporting, prioritizing support for mother and the baby. What is this in that really? What is support in this context?
Support in this context is creating a conducive environment for the woman to breastfeed and for the child to also breastfeed effectively. So now it's it has many layers. One, it could involve creating a conducive environment at home, and then we have another one that might seem controversial a bit, but also creating a conducive environment at the workplace.
I don't think it's even controversial. It's as basic as
It's
it
as
is.
basic, right?
So it should be conducive. Is conducive anywhere.
We think it's basic, but most employers in Nigeria frown at it because even the supposed 3 months leave that mothers are supposed to get after childbirth, it's still most workplaces still have issues sticking to it. Exactly. So now, conducive in the sense that because this is a natural process. And then while we are trying to encourage that mothers should breastfeed, we should create a conducive environment in workplaces, in churches as well. Because you can't keep running at the woman that, why are you breastfeeding? Go to somewhere and then she goes outside. Or she just start hanging around somewhere. We should create a conducive environment where these women can breastfeed effectively without feeling stigmatized, without feeling that people are looking at me, without feeling disrespected, without feeling scorned at the same time.
All right. I mean, thank you so much. We would definitely take a short break. The conversation is just getting started. As much as I know we've covered quite a lot, Chiamaka Chime is a nutritionist and a public health advocate. And sometimes some of these issues are things we hardly talk about. Well, before I take this break, I think it's important I mention the fact that some workplaces actually, when I had my last baby, my office, of course, as my MD, they made sure they gave us an office space, like this is for you. There's more like a nursery where you could go breastfeed and then go back. So I feel like this is something that a lot of people naturally, beyond even making it look like it's a responsibility, there's this human part of you that makes you feel like this person deserves this comfort. It's just for a little phase of time, and of course, and it's off. Anyways, it's still Gyna Plus right on Afia TV, and we're talking about why it's important to support mothers and their babies during the breastfeeding month. And we'll take a short break, and after that, we'll pick up right back. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. This is still Gyna Plus right on Afia TV, and we're still discussing why it is important to support mothers and their babies during their breastfeeding month. And of course, I have a nutritionist here in the building. She's also a public health advocate, Chiamaka Chime, doing such a wonderful job, if you ask me. You talk about the fact that sometimes mothers get stressed, and once they get stressed, it affects the quality of breast milk and also the quantity of breast milk. And I know for a mother who's watching, and I also know a friend who just, called to say that, she's not feeling the flow like it used to be. What should be done in cases like this? Because, we're advocating for feeding the baby. So do I just stop when the breast milk stops, even though my baby is less than 6 months? What should be done?
Okay, thank you for that important question. So first, like I earlier mentioned, stress is a major determinant to stopping the breast milk production. So most times, she should be encouraged. The first thing that we can do is what are the indicators that are making you stressed the most? Okay, now, are you sleeping properly? That's number one. Are you feeding properly? Because normally, when you are breastfeeding, because one of the importance of breastfeeding to the mother is the weight loss. Because now, when you are breastfeeding, you lose some calories. So now, are you balancing the one you are giving out to the one that you are taking in? Are you eating enough food? So most times we generally advocate that mothers who are breastfeeding should consume at least more than what they were taking before, that additional 500 calories. And then your food should be high in protein. We're talking of egg. You should take more of egg. And egg also has healthy fat, of course. You should take more of egg, more of chicken, lean protein. We should take also more of meat, fish. Okay, these are things because now the breast milk is really high in fat. And then fish also contains more of omega-3, which is an important component that would aid in production of the breast milk. So now these factors would aid in the breast milk production. And then something else that we need to notice is that are we taking plenty of fluid? Because the breast milk composed of 88% water. So now, are you taking enough water? Because most times when you are dehydrated, we think it doesn't matter, but it also affects our breast milk production. Because all this makeup, all these elements are involved in the human's makeup rather. So now, it is important that we try to find out the stress indicators. So now, what is making you stressed?
Yeah.
And can it be reduced?
Yes, let me quickly comment there, because I know you've mentioned the fact that could it be food? And then you mentioned lean protein, chicken, the egg. Well, it sounds like a very beautiful thing. Let's be realistic. for homes that can afford the whole chicken thing, the lean this. It's a good idea. Now let's not get it twisted. But let's just come back to ordinary people like you and I, for instance, who still want to breastfeed their baby, maybe exclusively or maybe the other way around. Are there local foods that they can, more like a go-to plug for local food that maybe something they can cook in the kitchen that will help boost breast milk production so nobody gets to suffer?
Okay, that's a very wonderful question. You see, as a country, luckily enough, we've been blessed with various naturally produced proteinous food. Number one, we have okpa that we usually overlook. That okpa enugu, okpa this. Okpa is actually very high in protein, and this could also help the mother because we are looking at food that are high in protein. And then we also could incorporate beans. Beans is quite high in protein, and then we could also incorporate using crayfish. There's this our natural one because if fish is expensive, we could turn to crayfish as well to use to cook our food. If you are cooking rice, you put your crayfish.
So that too helps to
it
boost
could help
supply.
because it is also high in protein as well. And we should also look for food that are high in fats. We have egusi, exactly, because now while you are breastfeeding, you are exuding calories. So now what can you take to supplement the calories that you are giving out so that can be a balance? So you could take egusi. Egusi has quite a number of fats, has healthy fats, and then most of our Nigerian soups that are made with quite a number of oil too. And then we have oha soup. Oha soup also helps. Exactly, oha soup helps a lot because, and why we are actually talking of calories too, because most people that are actually going on weight loss, they try to take away egusi and oha soup because the cocoyam in the oha has quite a number of calories. But now, as breastfeeding mothers, you could try to look for things that would increase your caloric intake. Exactly. So you could take oha soup. You could also take vegetable soup. Because vegetable soup is also high in fiber, and you also need the fiber too. That would also help in the breast milk production. You need vegetable soup, okra soup, things that would help.
So it seems like everyday local meals can help. So what you need to do is eat well.
Eat well, exactly. Eat well, and then while you're also preparing your meals, you see, most times if you cannot afford fish, or you cannot afford lean meat, lean chicken, and the rest of it,
go for the local crayfish and the options.
Exactly, you can use these shrimps, but most times when you sell it doesn't sell shrimps as well. Yes,
I think I've seen that too. Okay, now the other issues around some myths. When you started, you mentioned the misinformation. Say some of the reasons why you think we are where we are as it concerns breastfeeding is the fact that some parents have probably picked up information that are really not accurate as it concerns breastfeeding, which of course you cited the colostrum thing and all of that. But away from that, the myth that maybe it might not be a myth per se. There have been concerns that once you're a breastfeeding mom, for instance, and you maybe fall sick along the line while you're breastfeeding your baby, that you're meant to stop breastfeeding that baby. And what would the baby eat at that point in time? So I wanted to address that from a public health concern. How much of a problem is that? And is it really true that once a mother falls ill, it's advised that she stop discontinue breastfeeding?
Okay, that's an important question. I think it depends on the kind of sickness. Because most times, while a mother is ill, there are some drugs that she's advised to not take because it might affect the constituent of the breast milk. So most times, when you go to a pharmacy, they ask you, are you breastfeeding? Because there's some drugs that you might take that might affect the baby. But in a more general sense, there are some sickness. For example, now if you have cracked nipples, inverted nipples, mastitis, or swollen breast, you might be advised to stop breastfeeding for the moment. And then these are some of the rare instances whereby a woman might have to stop breastfeeding for the meantime, and then the child might have to rely on formula feeding or wet nurses that will take up the place of the mother. But then you advise, because it is better you do it than to just stop completely. Once the woman gets well, she's advised to start breastfeeding immediately to counteract the effects of the gap that have been affected along the way.
we talk about the fact that this year's theme is centered around prioritizing support for mothers and babies. The policies in place, do you think they're favorably enough for mothers? From an advocate point of view, what do you think has to change? What do you think we need to dot the I's? Moving forward, what can be done better when it comes to building support for mothers and babies in line with breastfeeding?
Okay, so firstly, the first point of contact that most mothers have when they give birth are usually their health workers, that's the health officials. And then from what we observed during our outreach, we found out that most health officials, they give surface information on breastfeeding. Like most times they don't really go in depth on, okay, how can you face some challenges? How can you breastfeed effectively? And then all the information that some mothers would need at the hospital or health clinic, most times it's not sufficient enough. And then most times, even after they give birth, then there's usually the postnatal care. But most times the postnatal care is more centered on immunization and then less on how to support the mother, maybe probably asking questions, how is your breastfeeding journey going? Are there some difficulties that you are facing? So the first point of contact that we should try to make sure that is intact is from the healthcare centers. How are these mothers educated enough? Because as healthcare professionals, you can't afford to say if she wants to breastfeed, she should breastfeed. If she doesn't want, it's her concern. You can't have the neutral. You should not have the neutral stance. You should make sure that, okay, are you advocating for breastfeeding? Because most times, if you are neutral as a healthcare worker, the mothers might end up saying that, oh, since it's not much of a big deal, let me just stop it from there. And then secondly, when we even go home, like I mentioned, while these misinformations, probably from our mother-in-law, our sisters-in-law, and the rest can probably be coming in, once the spouse, that's the husband, is firmly behind his wife, firmly beside her, and then this misinformation might not really get to her, because now how can you make sure that I am positively supporting my wife? How am I making sure that the workload at home, I am reducing it so that while she's breastfeeding, stress can be reduced? How am I making sure that am I going to cook so that she can use that time to probably breastfeed? Because most times she might be up all night. And she wakes up in the morning and she's tired. It's not the time for you to tell her, go and take the children to school, go and do this. No, it's the time for you to find the way you can stand and take up those roles. And then churches. Most churches, when she goes to church, of course, like I mentioned earlier now, we need to have policies in place that for breastfeeding mothers, are there convenient areas in churches where she could breastfeed, where she could go and breastfeed so that she won't feel people looking at her, our church is going on, what are you doing? This woman is distracting us. Once she knows that this is a public area, then where should she go to? She goes outside to, she's outside. And then we should try to find a way whereby there's a comfortable environment for this woman to comfortably express the need. And then for workplace, why few workplaces already adopt this policy whereby there is a comfortable place for the mother to express milk? A lot of workplaces in Nigeria do not do this. And that was another issue that we saw from mothers, because while we were doing the outreaches, we found out that most mothers that stopped breastfeeding was because of their workplace. When they said they want to breastfeed, and then next minute, this woman again, she's already doing that. And then we should try to find a way whereby the workplaces have built-in areas where the mothers can comfortably express milk. And then the government, also very important, because even this 3 months leave that we think it's a general standard everywhere, you might be shocked to find out that it's not. And then some mothers also complain that even 2 months, they're already calling them, this woman return to work, or they are doing this, they are doing that. So the government should also find a way to make sure that the 3 months leave is also upheld. And then, yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Chiamaka. I mean, this is where we have to draw the curtains. Thank you. It's been a wonderful outing with you, talking about why it's important to support mothers and the breastfeeding. And of course, we had Chiamaka Chime, who is a public health advocate, talking to us as to why it's important to build supportive systems for mothers who are breastfeeding their babies to enable them breastfeed optimally. I think that's the word. Thank you so much. This is Gyna Plus, and of course, my name is Doris Mayim Shisha. See you next week and have a lovely evening.